Oh, you know what it's like when you buy something and you sure you know how it works, and then you get it, and then it doesn't do what you thought it would do, and then you're like, well, okay, I see. I thought it did A, but it really does B, which is not quite the same as A. I was confused. So then you're like, well, as long as I already spent my money, I'm going to try to get it to do B, and then it won't do B either. And now you're just like, what did I spend my money on? Nothing. Yeah, it's a probably an experience many people in FPV are familiar with, because you buy all kinds of, you buy a receiver, you buy a quadcopter, you buy a set of goggles, and you can't get them to do what you want them to do. I have to say that's not an experience that I am very familiar with, because not because I'm particularly capable, just because I tend to stay in my lane. I like to just keep doing the things I'm already good at, and then have everyone tell me how smart I am. And then occasionally someone says, can you do this? And I say, oh, yeah, no problem. I'll do that. And then they're like, can you do it by such and such a date? And I'm like, oh, yeah, there's plenty of time. And then you realize that it's, that deadline is coming up, and you haven't done it yet, and you're like, oh, geez, I got to sit down and bang that out. And then the thing that you said you could do, you're failing to do, and you don't have a lot of time left to do it. That's an experience I tend to try to avoid. And that's been my life for the last 24 hours. And so I just want you guys to know it happens to me too. Except it's a little different when you're like, damn, I spent all this money and I can't get my drone to fly. Oh, well, I guess I'll just go to work. Versus when you've told someone that you can do a thing. But like, what would the world be like if everyone was honest about whether they could do things? If people said, can you do this? And you were like, I don't know, probably not. And then you just went back, that's, who wants to live like that? Not me. But the beautiful thing, I have to say, these are the most frustrating times in my life, but also the most invigorating. Because if I hadn't told someone that by the way, I'm trying to distinguish between whether I said that I could do it or would do it, like, what did I represent? Versus, yeah, if I hadn't put myself in that situation, I probably would have just quit by now. I'd be like, this is stupid, what a waste, and just done something else. But now I have to figure it out. So, sucks to be me. How about overpromise and overdeliver? Everybody says underpromise and overdeliver. What about overpromise and just barely deliver by the skin of your teeth and hope nobody notices? You're like, yeah, of course, I always knew I would succeed. What about that? Overpromise and just barely deliver. That's actually that's actually the way. Because thing is, if you underpromise, then you don't get the job. This is a thing that I've struggled with. Is I'm a very pragmatic person, and if you say, "Can you do this?" Like I'm very wedded like married to accuracy in speech, and so if you say, how do you make this receiver talk to this flight controller? I will lay out all of the steps exactly right. And if you say, can you do this thing? I will tell you all of the reasons why I might be able to do it and why I might fail it to do it, and all of the things about it that I have done before and I'm pretty sure I could do, and all the things that I have never done before and I might not be able to do. And I'll say to you, I'll give it a chance. And you know what happens then? Somebody who walks in the door and says, oh yeah, no problem, I could do that. Done it a million times. Even if they're lying, they get the job. And then maybe they succeed or maybe they fail. But you never get a chance to prove that you can succeed if you're completely honest about your chances of success. And so I think that the secret to success, and I don't think this is a good thing, I don't think it speaks well about humanity, but it's just how it is. The secret to success is to lie about whether you can do something, and then just then somehow succeed despite the fact that you lied. And as long as you always succeed in the end and the customer is happy, then you keep getting away with it. The people that I am very confused by are the people who just go out and bullshit. We're gonna go to the moon and it's gonna cost $5 and we're gonna have a colony on the moon and then Mars, and everybody's like, yay, I raised $800 trillion. And then like somehow it's 10, 15 years later and nobody's on the moon and they still have $800 trillion and, stock market go up. And I'm like, wait, is lying about your capabilities, never doing anything and still being successful is an option? Is that an option? How do I get in that club? My default club is to be completely honest about my capabilities and then not get the job.
That's your problem.
What's that, Blunty?
That's your problem. You're too honest.
Yeah.
You have to lie about projects and then make things happen regardless of what
that's what it is. That's what it is. And I have to keep my mouth shut when I'm in the room with a sales engineer or a quote unquote sales guy, because the customer will be like, can you do X? And he'll be like, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Not only can we do X, we've done, these other 3 things very similar to X. Not a problem. And I'm like, no, we haven't done those things. I told you over lunch once that I thought about doing those things. I have like a half-assed prototype of one of those things, and I have to just bite my tongue.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of times you're riding a line of like lying or just exaggerating, and then the customer forgets 3/4 of what they asked for in the original thing, and it does what they really needed it to do, and that was fine in the first place, right? It's really frustrating. Yeah,
it's very frustrating. Are you, Blunty, also kind of like a straight shooter, even to your own detriment?
Yes,
seems like you would be. Yeah.
Yes, when you're realistic. The thing is, you never disappoint anyone if you're realistic about your expectations. They're only really happy with your work because you delivered exactly what you said, or you figured out extra stuff you could do that you didn't know. Mm-hmm. But overpromising is not a big thing for me because I don't really care about getting the job. When you care about getting the job, it's much more important to overpromise.
Yeah, and it's why engineers need a sales engineer, a sales manager between them and the customer, because the engineers will be like, well, I have a 14% chance of finishing this by Q2 2027 with a budget of X. And then he needs to process that and then know just how much he can bullshit the customer and still not. I mean, ultimately, as long as the customer's happy, and no one goes to prison, right? Eventually, you lie so much you go to prison. But the amount of lying you can get away with in sales is higher than I would have thought.
Yeah,
anyway.
I would just say also, like, the other thing you can do is make a big company and then pseudo lie to investors over calls about information that's happening. Well, I've never heard any company do that that's related to FPV, but I'm just saying that's a thing you could do as well. That's another angle to go, right?
You're not going to name names, though, right, Blunty? Because that would potentially be defamation.
Correct.
But yes, I also have listened to investor reports and heard companies say things and thought, I know that's not true. And yet somehow you go public, you make $50 million. I'm doing it wrong, man.